If you look at all the best leaders, past and present, you'll notice each of them has certain nuances and quirks and traits that make them different and unique in their own right. Whether it's military leaders, civilian leaders, sports teams leaders, anything. But the one thing they all have in common, no matter what, is that they all know how to take accountability and ownership in every aspect of their lives. So today we're going to talk about why that's so important and how you can do that in your daily life or your business or your career so that you improve yourself as a leader and improve the success of the team that you lead. If you get value out of this show, don't forget to like and subscribe and put your notifications on and tell your friends and enemies. And if you stick to the end and you comment the word leadership in the comments, you'll get a shout out on the next episode. All right, let's go. All right, this is the Libretti Leadership Lab number 2 with me, your host, Libretti, founder, lead coach, consultant of Spearhead Leadership. You can find us online at spearheadleadership.co. You can find us on Instagram at _Spearhead Leadership. You can even find us on LinkedIn, Spearhead Leadership. Look us up. We're talking about ownership and accountability this week. Now, I don't like to rank the most important leadership principles or qualities that the best leaders should have. If you want to improve, you have to do these in this order. I don't like to rank that because I believe they're all absolutely vital and important. And you should continuously look to learn, grow, and improve upon all those principles and traits. But the thing about taking ownership and accountability is that if you don't work on that the most and the most consistently, you're never going to be able to improve the any other aspect of leadership to the best of your abilities because you don't have the ownership or the accountability to get over those hurdles and humps that come with growth and improvement. Now, why is that the most important? I guess I can say that's the most important. Why do I consider that the most important or one of? Because it's the fight between what we know to logically be true to become an effective leader, to get the job done, to accomplish our mission, our goals, reach our visions, whatever you want to call it. And the emotions inside us, our survival instinct, our egos, and you're going to hear me say that a lot. That fight between the logical and the ego is a constant battle. No matter what, no matter how good you are as a leader, as a human being, as a friend, whatever, you're always going to have that constant fight. It's survival instinct, deep ingrained in us. And that's another thing you're going to hear me talk about a lot, is our basic survival instincts as human beings since our inception, however many thousands and thousands of years ago. We are wired to survive and to look for negative, look for problems, be always aware of all problems and negativity going on because we had to survive to get away from them, to get back into our comfort zone. So most of our issues and problems stem from our survival instinct to get back in our comfort zone and to our safety. And that's what's going on here in most of the situations we have that require accountability and ownership, which is basically all the situations in our lives. That survival instinct is going to kick in. Emotionally, our ego is going to try to take over and push back on things. And if we can't take that step back and separate those emotions and push our egos to the side, we're never going to be able to clearly see a solution or a way forward to anything. That's why I believe it's so important. That's why I think it's the most vital to work on a constant basis. And it's one of the most difficult to do. When you're hardwired to get defensive, to put up your defense mechanism, to not want to admit when you're wrong, to push back when someone disagrees with you, when you're hardwired to do that as a human, it's really tough to fight to overcome that. I get it. I always say this, and I say a lot of things over and over again because I believe repetition is the key to success in anything. Repetition and never quitting, staying strong. But when it comes to ownership and accountability and our egos, it's simply put, leadership is simple. You just push your ego aside, think objectively and logically about whatever situation you're in, and don't let your emotions get the best of you. It's very simple in theory, but we all know in reality it's one of, if not the most difficult thing to do. And there are a lot of factors that go into why that is. There are a lot of factors that make it even more difficult to do that. For instance, if you have a personality issue, if you don't like someone you're working with, or if you have someone in your friend group that you're not really friends with, but your other friends are, and you don't really like that person, and they challenge you on something, they disagree with you on something, the first thing you want to do is push back. Like, I don't want this guy to be right over me or to be considered better than me or win in any way, shape, or form. That's the first thing we feel. And that's what that is. It's a feeling rather than a thought. And we have to be able to take that step back and detach from those feelings, that ego creeping in, to be able to take that look inward, that introspective look inward, take ownership of the situation to be able to move forward and reach the success you actually want. Now, how do we do that? It's, like I said, it's really tough. Our entire existence is hardwired to not do that, really. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we have to understand is that we're all human beings. And nobody's perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to be wrong at times. Somebody's going to have a better idea than we do. Somebody's going to be right and wrong. We have to understand that at a fundamental level. It's very easy to just say that out loud. Oh, yeah, I know. I'm a human being. I make mistakes. People do that all the time. You know, people do that all the time. And if you look at actually the worst leaders out there, think about the worst boss you ever had or supervisor or a significant other in a relationship that was toxic or didn't end up well. We all do that at one point or another. We say out loud to the masses, "Oh yeah, I know when I'm wrong. I can admit when I'm wrong or make a mistake." But then when it actually comes time to admit a mistake or admit at fault, they're the first thing they do is they push back or they try to do the mental gymnastics to talk through why it's not really their fault, it's somebody else's fault, and they're pointing fingers and placing blame. And it does nothing but create more problems down the road, creates a terrible work culture if you have a bad boss doing that. It breaks trust, it ruins your relationships. And you can never achieve anything with it. Any sort of productive goal or mission you're looking to achieve, you can't do it. So it's one thing to say, yeah, I can admit when I'm wrong and make mistakes. It's another thing to actually do it. So you got to be aware of that. I've heard it 1,000 times. I've worked with people in the military doing it. I've worked with bosses and peers and coworkers. I've had, people in my social life do it. Hell, even I've done it in the past a lot. I still do it. I still like to think out loud that I'm good at taking ownership. But at the end of the day, I have to work extra hard to improve that ability because I know deep down the ego's always going to come up and cause problems. Still to this day. And if you could take that look inside all your other, your own relationships and friendships and partnerships in the business sense. There's still that constant fight. No matter how improved or mature you get, it's still going to pop up. It's still going to be an issue to deal with. So you want to make sure you're at least aware of it first and actually aware of it. No more of this crap of just saying it out loud so people, hear what they want to hear, and then you go back to defending yourself to the death and never admitting a mistake and doing all that crap. Okay? You have to actually acknowledge that you're a human being, you make mistakes, and that's okay. If you're in a supervisor role at work, in your career, you're a business owner, you own a law firm, whatever, nobody expects you in reality to know all the answers, to know all the solutions, to never make a mistake. That's crazy talk. There's that stigma out there for some reason or another that once I go into this managerial position, I have to know everything. I'm expected to know everything. I'm expected to have all the answers and never be wrong. I don't know where that started. That probably started with poor leadership at a higher level, where they expected that of their mid-level leadership. And it just trickled down and became the norm. That's usually how things start. It starts with one bad apple that ruins the bunch. Is that the saying? I'm not really good with sayings. I jack those up all the time, but I think that's the saying. One bad apple ruins the bunch. So we got to reverse that curse, if you will. Okay, so it starts by acknowledgement. The other thing to help with that is to take the time to understand the personality differences you have with the people around you that you interact with. Whether it's, coworkers, supervisors, subordinates, friends, family members, significant others. You have to understand the relationship you have with them and what makes them tick and what sort of issues you already have to begin with them at all. If you have an understanding of that, you'll be better postured to know when the ego is going to creep in. If you have somebody you work with, you have a subordinate that maybe you don't trust, or they're historically lazy, or whatever it is, something negative about them, the instinct that you have is if they mess up, it's on them. They must have screwed up. They're lazy, so therefore that's why the job didn't get done. That's why the task didn't get done. Whatever it may be. So if you understand your relationship with that person or those people ahead of time, then you're going to know when these situations arise. Well, I already think this guy's lazy, so maybe let me take the step back and be objectively, analytical about this. Let's figure this out for real before I let my biases creep in and then my ego take over and I start pointing fingers. Because at the end of the day, if you're in a managerial position, if you're in a supervisor role, if you're a leader in any way, shape, or form, and let's be honest, we're all leaders in some way, shape, or form. It's not a job title. Leadership is not a duty title. It's a skill. The buck stops with you as the leader. So no matter what, if you have a team of employees who's not getting their work done, the buck stops with you. If you have a team of bad employees, they're not going to, your higher up leadership or your customer base is not going to look at all of them individually and be like, oh, there's all these bad eggs. Let's get rid of that. No, they're going to look at you and be like, hey, why do you have such a bad team? Why do you have all these bad eggs in here? Now, the worst of the worst, and I'm sure you guys have dealt with this before, those really bad leaders who can't take ownership and accountability, they'll start pointing fingers. Well, I didn't get the tools and resources from my higher-ups to be able to train these guys effectively and this and that, and these guys just don't want to listen to me, and I don't trust them and this and that, and you throw them under the bus, and then you make things worse in the long run because now you're killing the culture, the environment around the team They're certainly not going to trust you now, and you're not going to get actual productivity and value out of your team that way. You just can't. If your team doesn't trust you, if you don't have a good relationship with them, forget about it. But we're breaking that here. We're working to break that cycle here. So you got to have a good understanding of the people around you and what your biases are of them and maybe how you can fix those. And that's a different conversation altogether. We'll talk about that in a separate episode. But just having an understanding of those is a good start. And then there's positional expectations you want to kind of understand. Are these self-inflicted biases that you have because you're a manager? And again, like we just talked about, oh, I have to know everything. I have to always be right. These people expect me to always be right. Or is it something that somebody else inflicted upon you from the outside? Hey, I expect you to always, you're supposed to always have the answers. Regardless, you have to take ownership of that. And what I mean by that is you have to understand how to respond to that accordingly. It may not necessarily be your fault that somebody has expected your role on your team or in your business is to be the go-to, the person who has all the answers, is never wrong, never makes a mistake. Maybe some outside personnel or outside force created that situation. Maybe the previous manager or leadership element did that. But to take ownership, like we always, I've been saying this whole time, you got to take ownership of all your stuff. To take ownership in that situation, you have to own how to change that stigma. You have to own the response to break that cycle and break that negative stigma. So you have to still take that step back. You still have to push your ego aside. And you have to be open and transparent with people. Hey, I'm not going to know all the answers. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to be a human just like you. Because as soon as you start falling into the other way, where you're telling everybody around you, all your subordinates, hey, I'm in charge now, so what I say goes, and everything I do is right, and I always have all the answers, and nobody else does because I'm in this role. You're never gonna break through. So you have to understand where these expectations are coming from, whether they're self-inflicted or outside, and you still have to take ownership. You still have to own the response to break the negativity there. And then how do we act, the big how do we improve that? The sort of like the final step, the long-term solution, the long-term step to be better at taking ownership and owning things and taking accountability and then teaching others how to do this effectively as well is you have to change your mindset altogether. And that's an entire process in and of itself. And that's something we work on as part of our coaching and training at SPEARHEAD. It's one of the big key elements that we do that most other people don't do, is we provide full leadership and success mindset training to kind of change those neural pathways in your head. Because like I mentioned before, the basic, the primal instinct, the survivor's instinct is to let the ego take over and push back. But we have to change those pathways in our brain. That's our brain. That's our mindset. Has these pathways, this circuitry, this well-paved path and road that says, let the ego take over, push back, stay in your comfort zone, never be vulnerable, because that's when the danger comes. We have to create an exit off of that path. And we do that with regular mindset training. And it's an entire process, and it's an ongoing, consistent process that you have to continue to do each and every day to keep creating those exits and grooving out those paths and paving those new pathways so that it starts to become second nature, starts to become sort of subconscious, level action within you. So that when someone disagrees with you or tells you you're wrong, your first instinct is not to push back and fire back at them and say, no, you're wrong, I'm right, and here's why. We want your first instinct to be, take a deep breath. Why, what am I doing wrong here? Why am I wrong? What's Let's think about this for a second. That's where you want to get to. And there's a whole very much proven pathway to get to that. And it's very simple, guys. And that's the thing about leadership in general, but changing your mindset as well. These principles and actions and things you can do to improve are all very simple. What makes them difficult is when our emotions and ego get in the way. We stop being consistent in the process of improvement. That's why most people fail. That's why you don't see every organization in the corporate world with top tier leadership. That's why you don't see good managers in every storefront you go to. That's why you don't see the best of the best everywhere around you. It's not common, not because it's too hard and too complex. It's because people can't get out of their own way of their egos and stay consistent in their process. If you ask any successful business owner, entrepreneur, captain of a professional sports team, manager of a sports team, whatever it is, any successful human being out there, anybody you consider to be a great leader, one of the things they're always going to tell you is that the path to success, is to just never quit. There's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be issues. There's going to be the ego creeping in. It's always going to happen. But you got to stick to your process of improvement. That's what all great leaders can do. And they're able to take ownership in their own flaws and their own mistakes and find solutions and improvements to those to keep pushing forward and to stay consistent in their process. And that's why there's so many people who don't have that leadership mindset, that highly successful mindset. It doesn't take, a genius level IQ to figure this out, folks. Trust me, it doesn't. It can be done. It is a skill that can be learned and improved upon and mastered. You just have to keep working at it. And you're going to see that in future episodes, future discussions. My clients see it all the time. It's like, man, this is really, this is so simple, but I just never actually follow through with it. It's crazy. That's really the breakthrough you get with this all is that, man, this was so simple the whole time, and I've wasted years of my career or my relationship, my personal life, just not being consistent in this particular path to improvement and leadership development. It's crazy. So you want to train your brain to have that success and leadership mindset. And we'll have a separate episode that kind of goes into that. We'll have some guests on that talk about how they've done that as well in the past to get you guys on that path. A way to start that, though, and this is something you can do at home right now if you wanted to. Whenever you're watching this, you can turn it off and start this right now. Okay? And we've done this in the military. They sort of ingrained this they created this neural pathway in our brains without even telling us almost. It was almost like they tricked us into it. But if you ask anybody in the military who's worked operations in the past, and I've done this for years in my time in the military, after missions, supporting whether it's, aerial missions or ground operators, special operators, after every mission, you have a debrief. Okay? And in that debrief, whether you failed or succeeded at the mission, and more, most times we had mission success, we had a comprehensive full debrief on everything. We talked about what you did well to maintain that and to keep improving that and to get better at that, to be more proficient and mastered at that. And then we talked about what we need to improve upon. And that all came with taking that inward look and looking at how your personal performance was on that mission and what you can do to improve. And it became an exercise. It started out as a forcing function. I don't care how well you did. I don't care how successful the mission was, how flawless it went according to plan. You got to look inside yourself, take that introspective look of how you did, what you did on that mission, and how you can improve. What did you not do 100%? What did you think you could have done a little bit better? And it changed that sort of pathway in our brain to start thinking about that on a regular basis. Not to become perfectionists, not to be constantly dissatisfied with things, because that's a separate problem in and of itself, and that's another discussion. That's another leadership principle we'll discuss. But it was to become more focused on improvement and solutions, and to get out of our own way, to create that subconscious instinct to push the ego aside and to take that introspective look and to take ownership. So you can do that at home. You don't have to be in the military to do this. You could do that at home right now. You could do it in your jobs, whether you have a leadership position or not. You could do it as a business owner, an entrepreneur, whatever it is, a solopreneur even. And when a situation arises, even if you think you're 100% right, you're having an argument with a family member or whatever, one of your employees makes a mistake or fails at a task, they didn't get the job done. Start with this exercise. Even if everybody says, oh, this person is the one, they're the one who screwed up, it's on them, don't worry, boss, it wasn't you, blah, 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 whatever. It doesn't matter. Ask yourself the question, how can I make this my fault? And again, it's not to say everything's going to be your fault. This is not turning you into an unrealistic perfectionist who's never satisfied no matter what. It shouldn't anyway. But it's to get you to start thinking about what you could do as a leader to better support your team, to help prevent them from failing again, or prevent yourself from making the same mistakes. How can I make this my fault? Even if you think you're 100% correct and you did everything you could as a leader, how can I make this my fault? And you start cross-examining your own decisions, your own feedback, your own actions in this particular situation. And that'll start getting your brain to think step by step, okay, well, I communicated out the expectation of this person. Did I confirm with them that they were clear on the expectation? No? Okay, that's something I could have done better. I could have confirmed with them, hey, do you understand everything I'm asking you? Let's have this conversation. Give me the feedback. Where did I not communicate effectively enough? Did I provide all the resources and support necessary for this person to succeed? Maybe you find out, oh, there was some training that they could have done that would have better prepared them for this particular task at hand. Maybe it was an online training on LinkedIn Learning or something. Maybe there was a course that I could have sent them to ahead of time. Maybe there was education I could have personally provided them based on my experiences on how to succeed in this task. Did I ask for regular feedback? Did I get regular updates from them? Did I request regular updates from them without being too micromanagey and show that I actually trust them? Maybe you find out you never got feedback from them until the end. You gave them a task, and then at the end they came back and was like, well, this is what I think you wanted, and then the task didn't go well, and now you have to pick up the pieces. So you want to ask all these questions step by step. Cross-examine yourself. If you're a lawyer out there, if you're a law firm owner, you know what I'm talking about. You do it when you're preparing cases. If you're defending someone or even prosecuting, you go over your questions to that witness and you analyze and assess what they're going to ask your witness so that you can prepare them ahead of time. Good comedians even do it. They write out a joke and they write a bit out and they go back and look, well, what can people push back on to make this not funny, to make this not realistic, to make this not relatable? Cross-examine yourself, and it starts by asking that simple question: how can I make this my fault? That's how you can start taking better ownership in all aspects of your life. Deep breath. When the situation arises, you're going to get emotional. Deep breath. How can I make this my fault? How can I cross-examine myself before I react emotionally, before I let my ego respond for me? That's how you sort of get to the next steps. And there is training we could provide. There are multiple things you can do to continue working on that. But from a beginner's perspective, this is a very effective, simple, and easy way to get it going. It's going to be difficult to admit this stuff in the beginning because, like I said, we all say out loud, "Oh yeah, I can admit when I'm wrong or when I make a mistake." But we know in reality, when the shit hits the fan, for lack of a better term, the first thing we want to do is push back. So it's going to be difficult in the beginning to get through that. You're going to ask yourself, how can I make this my fault? And the first thing you're going to think about is like, well, it wasn't. That guy just, I did everything right. I did everything I was supposed to do. You got to keep grinding through that. That's your ego pushing back. You got to keep fighting through that ego. And let me be clear very quickly, because I didn't do this earlier and I should have. I'm not sitting here suggesting that we're all bad people because of our egos. Okay? Our egos are they get us places too. They build us confidence. They keep us, again, it's a survival instinct. They keep us safe and secure sometimes. So you have to learn how to effectively use that ego, know when to use it for good, and propel yourself using your confidence levels to accomplish goals. And you need to know when to kick it to the curb and take that introspective look and take ownership of things. And we all have it. Okay? We all have the ego. It's ingrained in all of us. And I know that's a tough thing to admit. And I deal with it on a regular basis too. Internally and with prospects and clients, people I'm working with. The first thing out of most people's mouth is when you tell them, hey, you got a leadership problem. No, I don't. Everything's fine. When you're talking to people, hey, what are some of the things you're struggling with? I'm not struggling with anything. Our company's doing great. Everything's great. Nobody wants to admit that they're struggling and going through stuff. But in reality, we are all struggling and going through stuff. That's just our egos. That's the little voice inside our head telling us, hey, danger, danger. Don't admit vulnerability. That's when the enemy attacks. So we get it. We get it here. I get it totally. So if you need help, please feel free to read it. Put it in the comments. My ego is taking, I don't think I need to improve. Tell me why I feel that way. Help me realize why I feel that way. Whatever, type it out. Hey, give me help. You DM me on Instagram. If you don't want to put it out there in the public, you can DM on Instagram @_SpearHead Leadership. Let us know. We'll talk through some stuff. But if you're able to push your egos aside, if you're able to take that step back, take that deep cleansing breath, that centering breath, detach from those egotistical emotions, and cross-examine yourself, you're going to be well on your way to improving your ownership and accountability skills. And with that comes much more success in the long run, much more improvement on your end, much more improvement on your team, much more improvement with the relationships of the people around you. And you're going to start to see a lot more wins in your life stacking up. And that's all I got to say about that, folks. Before we go, as always, very quickly, we're going to talk about the big three, the three pillars to staying strong, being a better, happier, kinder, more genuine, healthier, less stressed human being, and a better leader in life. Number one, exercise every day. Do something, one thing each and every day to improve your fitness and health and wellness physically, mentally, or emotionally. Whether it's a full workout, physical activity, reading a book, taking on a new hobby, breaking that mental sweat, or hitting the emotional aspect, praying, meditation, anything spiritual, whatever, breath work. Do one thing each and every day to improve your health physically, mentally, emotionally. Number two, the hardest one to do, don't be a shitty person. Be a kind person. And remove yourself from the negativity and don't contribute to the negativity in this world. And that speaks directly to what we were talking about today with ownership. When the opportunity arises to be negative and mean to somebody and rude, even if you think they deserve it, if they disrespected you and you want to respond in kind, take that step back. Take that deep breath. Detach from those egotistical negative emotions and simply omit yourself from the situation. Most of the time it's happening online because it's a lot easier to be a text message tough guy on the internet or on your phone responding to someone or even initiating negative comments or just negativity and chaos in the world. So just by the simple omission from that situation, just not responding at all, just putting the phone down, closing the laptop altogether, you don't even have to respond with you don't even have to actively respond like, I love you or thank you for that. Nothing. Just get out of there. By doing that, you're minimizing the negativity and the shit and the chaos going on in the world around you, which is good for your mental health, mental and emotional well-being. And now you have the capacity and the time and the space to go focus on more positive, productive things with your lives as a leader. Number three, the most important one, be genuinely thankful and grateful for all the good you have in your lives. And you can start doing this again. We start small and stay consistent. That is the key to success and improvement as a leader. You can do this each and every day by taking 2 minutes to think about one good thing in your life and then think about what your life would be like without that thing. And how much worse your life would be without that thing or that person or that experience. And that'll immediately put you in the state of gratitude. And when you're in a state of gratitude, you're not going to want to go be negative out there. So it'll make number two a lot easier to do. And then when you have that space and capability, you can go focus on your health and wellness, physically, mentally, emotionally. They all come together. That's why they're the big three. So if you do these three things a little bit each and every day, consistently each and every day, I promise you all you'll be a better, happier, kinder, healthier, less stressed, more genuine human beings and better leaders in life. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this page on YouTube. We're going to get this going on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. So stay tuned for that. You can add us on there. You can leave comments and reviews. Comment leadership at the end of this if you want to get a shout out in the next couple episodes. If you have guest suggestions, you want to hear from experts in your particular industry or field, reach out to us and let me know. And we'll get with them to get good guests on to talk about leadership and to help you guys learn, grow, and improve as well. So put it in the comments. Leave your feedback. What kind of topics you want to learn about. We're here for it. This show is for you. This is for you. So anything you want to hear about that you maybe want to improve on, or maybe something you're dealing with in your life or at work, outside factors. How do we lead and navigate around and through outside factors out of our control? Put them in the comments as well. Leave that feedback. That's what we're here for. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Love you all. Stay strong.